Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Morning Five on January 16th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by Duane Long and Dan Rubin. Gentlemen, Cardale Jones shocked the world again yesterday. He just keeps shocking the world. Pulled a Mike Doss, as I'd like to say. The only two times I can remember an Ohio State athlete calling a press conference to announce they are returning. Pretty much everybody thought Cardale was gone. I thought he was gone. I'm thrilled he's coming back, though. I think, I know he wanted to come back. I thought he was sincere after the national championship game, gentlemen, when he said he wanted to come back. But I thought maybe some people close to him had talked him into leaving. But it's just great for the Buckeyes. I'm happy for Cardale. Duane, we'll go to you first. Your reaction when you first heard that Cardale Jones was coming back to Ohio State?
That it was a joke. I really could not believe that this kid, I thought he was messing with people when he first said that. I just don't know. I mean, he's not guaranteed a starting spot, and I go back to the fact that he was the number 2 when Miller went down. Barrett took the job from him. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen again. He's obviously a different kid. I mean, when he was getting in during the season, even before Barrett was hurt, he was reluctant to throw the ball. He was just unsure of himself. Now, I mean, he's completely different. I don't know who's going to win it. I just don't know if he doesn't win it, he's made a big mistake. Because sitting for a year, you can say, well, he's learning and all this, but he's not playing. I don't care. You can sit and read a book all day, but when you actually, I don't care what it is, football or doing science experiments, you've got to actually do it. He's hurt himself as far as the NFL is concerned if he is not the starter. So that's where I'm thinking he should have went ahead this was his shot, and he's not absolutely sure he's going to get another shot. I think he should have gone.
Dan, I want to get your reaction to it, like when you first heard, but I also want to get your comment on this. Tom Herman handpicked JT Barrett. I think if there was like a tiebreaker, if those guys were equal in camp, Tom Herman would have went with JT Barrett. I think with Tom Herman now gone, I think that increases Cardale Jones' chances of being the starter throughout the 2015 season. I have no doubt he'll at least start the season as a starter. I think he's earned that. So two-part question, Dan. Your reaction when you first heard the news, and what impact do you think Tom Herman's departure will have on Cardale Jones and JT Barrett?
Good morning, gentlemen. My first reaction when I heard the news, and being a jaded sports writer for the last 20-odd years, it rarely happens, my jaw literally dropped. I was completely shocked. If for no other reason, I didn't know why he would go back to Cleveland to announce that he was coming back to Columbus. That kind of threw me, I have to admit. And I'm shocked because if you listen to the air quote pundits, they say he's going to be a 4th or 5th round pick, which is code for let's tell everybody 4th or 5th round pick because somebody wants him in the 2nd round and they don't want to tell anybody. And he's got all the physical tools. I mean, he's not going to get any smaller. But what Duane said is really important. It wasn't like JT Barrett beat him out slightly. My understanding is there was always a plan if Braxton went down long term that JT was going to be the quarterback. And I do think one thing Cardale's growth and just meteoric rise has kind of cloaked is just how good JT Barrett was this year. It wasn't like he was, a caretaker for Braxton. He finished 4th in the Heisman voting. So, Cardale's coming back to compete with a guy who is also very talented, but JT had a much better command of the offense, I thought. More people got involved. I don't know if Ed Warner moving to offensive coordinator may change stuff. He may have a more ground-based approach considering he's an offensive line coach. But I do think Tom Herman leaving does probably give Urban the opportunity to kind of level the playing field and make it an open competition.
I will say this about Cardale, guys. I've been driving the JT Barrett bandwagon, so this surprises me more than anybody that I'm saying this. But one of the things that we've noticed about Cardale, defenses have to respect the deep ball. And I do not think it's a coincidence that Ezekiel Elliott has had his 3 best running games as an Ohio State player while Cardale Jones was a quarterback, because safeties cannot cheat up. They have to respect the deep ball, and that really opens the field up for Ezekiel. And that's one thing Cardale has that JT cannot do. Cardale can throw that ball as deep as you want it. He has a beautiful deep ball. Duane, we'll go to you first on that again. I mean, it really opens up the field for Ezekiel, does it not, when Cardale is in there?
It opens up the entire stadium. The kid can just, wherever he wants it, he can put it. I mean, when you watch him throw the ball, if you know anything about talent, you go, oh, my. It just jumps off his hand. I did not see a quarterback all year who could throw the football, just stroke it like Cardale Jones. Perfect motion, so he's not going to be a guy that's going to have shoulder problems down the road. The size is everything. Linemen are getting bigger and bigger. You got a guy who can see over them. It's not a problem. There are many advantages to Cardale Jones, and I can't say that one is a better runner than the other, but all I know is that when Cardale Jones gets in the secondary, his attitude is, what are all these little people doing putting their hands on me? I love how he gets after it. He's stiff-arming people. He's shoving people. When he ran over the 300-pound nose guard, when he hit that guy and he jolted back like he got hit by a truck, I stood and screamed. That's what I'm talking about. I love that. He's going to be able to take more punishment. He's going to stand back there in the pocket. He's going to get an arm on him. That's not going to matter. He's going to ignore your arm. You got to hit this guy. It's like Ben Roethlisberger. From down is another matter. Look, he saved a safety that could have changed the game against Alabama just by being so big and strong. So there are advantages. I was a Jones guy from the beginning. So I thought that he could be this kind of guy, and I was disappointed when he did not get the job. But when I saw him on the field and he was not throwing the ball every time he'd get out there, pull it down, and take off, I said, okay, he doesn't have the confidence. But now, the way he's throwing the football, he's the one that looks like the NFL guy. But he can't do it sitting on the bench, and if he doesn't win the job, that's where he's going to be, and who knows what's going to come from that. If he was a younger guy, it wouldn't matter, but he isn't. He's the older of the two. He can't sit. I don't know. I just don't think this is a good career move.
I don't think there's any way he's going to sit. I mean, there might be somewhat of a platoon situation, but I think Cardale Jones, the amazing 3-game run he had. It's not like he just had 3 amazing games. He did it in the Big Ten championship game, in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama, getting the SEC monkey off Ohio State's back, first official win over an SEC team. You do it in the first college football playoff. You do it against Alabama, the bully of the block, and you do it in SEC country. Then he backs up by winning something called the national championship game. That just changed everything. So I think he's definitely going to play. The question now is, can Ohio State run some type of 2-quarterback system? And I know the first thing you want to do is drive off the road when you hear that, because if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I get that.
Hold on a second.
If John Cooper is running this team, I don't want a 2-quarterback system. If Urban Meyer's running the team, maybe he's the one guy, Dan, that can pull it off. Could we see some type of 2-quarterback system, some type of platoon situation in 2015, Dan Rubin?
I think you made an excellent point there, and who you referenced in Urban Meyer, and the fact that Urban Meyer has won a national championship using a platoon system. If you remember back when they first got Tim Tebow in there with Chris Leak. Now, I don't think it was the traditional 2-quarterback system where they were like the old school Cowboys where Roger Staubach would run in a play, he'd come off, and Craig Morton would run in another play. That I am not into. But I do think Cardale's size and his arm strength makes him a viable option to run a 2-quarterback system. I will say this, I am just not a fan of that. I've never really seen it work perfectly, but if anybody can pull it off, I guess it's Herb. But my bet right now is they do not go with that.
Let's talk about Braxton. This is the one thing we still don't know. We've said we know JT was coming back. I guess there's a chance he could transfer, though I don't buy that for a second. He's not going to go 1AA, and since he has not graduated yet, of course, as he's only 2 years through his schooling, he can't transfer and not sit out a year and be eligible right away. So he's not going to give up a year of eligibility. JT's not going anywhere. The one, we really wondered about Cardale. We all thought Cardale was going to go. He's now back. So the big question, gentlemen, is Braxton. We'll start with Dan on this one. I don't know, Dan. I've said all along I thought he was going to go pro, but I think now that means supplemental draft if he's going to do that. He's going to try and see what happens with the shoulder, train as hard as he can. Maybe he'll come back to Ohio State, although I did not see Braxton coming back as a fifth-year senior and competing with JT Barrett and Cardale Jones. I still think the supplemental draft, none of these options seem good, trust me. But if I had to bet on one of them, I would say supplemental draft. If he's healthy, which is a monumental assumption, Dan, look in your crystal ball. What's going to happen with number 5?
Dave, I think you hit on the absolute key point there, and that I don't think we can make any decision or predictions on Braxton until we have a full medical report. The fact that we have not gotten one to this point, to me, is not encouraging. If he can't throw the ball the way he once did, and listen, we do have access to some doctors who have seen the MRI who think that he won't be able to do that again. Now, that's one of those things where it's a never-say-never deal. But the other issue I think here is people say, oh, he should go to the NFL. You're not going to fool NFL people, okay? They do a complete medical workup on you like you wouldn't believe it. So there's no way for him to just sneak his way into the NFL with a bad shoulder and become a slot back. That's not going to happen. So the question is what he wants to do. If he wants to come back and take another year and work under these guys, I get it. But, I mean, look how complicated the conversation was just a minute ago when we were trying to decide what to do with JT and Cardale. You throw Braxton into the situation, and then I think you have the potential for some hurt feelings and some drama and some stuff that may pull away from the performance on the field. So I think that's one of the risks you run, too, when you have 3 quarterbacks.
Duane, the floor is yours. What is going to happen with Braxton?
Well, I think there are 2 questions that have to be answered, and we are not close to either one of those. And one is he capable of being a quarterback? And then let's add this. If he's not capable of being a quarterback, that says his shoulder is damaged. Is he going to be able to pass any physical with a shoulder like that for contact at all? We don't know.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned something I heard from Matt Millen. He said he thought that Braxton Miller was one of the best runners he's ever seen, but he was an average quarterback. Braxton Miller is not going to outthrow JT Barrett and Cardale Jones. If it's just an even-Steven competition, we're going to put these guys in 7-on-7s and just find out who can throw the ball the best. He's going to finish third, and it's not even going to be close. So why would we even think he was going to be an NFL-caliber quarterback? It's not. We didn't know. We had questions before he got injured, whether he was a good enough passer, consistently good enough passer to throw at the NFL level. I don't think he sees the field well enough, and just way too many scattershot throws where you're like, what the hell was he doing with that? I just don't see that in him. I think he should concentrate on what if he comes back, moves to slot, and actually plays for a year as a slot. I think he could bring something to the game that would be in the best interest of the team and himself. He's going to bring strength that we're not used to seeing out of guys in the slot position. He's obviously got hands. He handles the ball every down. He's not a fumbler. I would say that is his best option. He's not going to outthrow the guys we got in our camp, let alone go to the NFL and outthrow those guys, even if his arm is healthy. And I'm just like you guys. I've talked to guys that I haven't talked to anybody that's actually seen the MRIs, but I've talked to guys who know about these kind of injuries, and they are not optimistic that this kid's going to be able to throw the football again anywhere like he did, even just throwing the ball around a yard with his kid. So that's a concern. I just, I hate this too because this is one of the guys that we all loved. I mean, he stuck with this team when they were bad. And he's not, it's been a class act all along. No trouble out of Braxton Miller. He's a quiet kind of guy, just a guy that you're proud that he's wearing scarlet and gray. And right now he is on the outside looking in every scenario. It's terrible. I hate it, but this is the way it is. I mean, it's the competition is competition at this level. And you're talking about national championship level talent, national championship level programs. Guys are going to compete. Sometimes people are going to lose jobs, and you're not real happy about it. I just don't see him being able to, all things considered, nothing to do with his past and who he is, just 3 guys standing there throwing the ball in 7-on-7, I think he's going to lose badly, even healthy. So I think just move now and try to get ready, as you said, either for the supplemental draft or stay here. Go another year. Give him a slot and let him win it. And I think he's going to cause a lot of problems there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that Braxton's a good kid. I really like Braxton personally. You know, he's a cool customer. You know, he's not a guy that's going to say a lot, but doesn't get in trouble off the field. As you mentioned, Duane stuck with the program during the darkest of times, and really threw his body out there on the line in that 2011 season. And imagine how bad that 2011 season would have been without Braxton, saving the game against Wisconsin against Russell Wilson. And then, of course, as a sophomore, finishes like 5th for the Heisman, leads the Buckeyes to a 12-0 record. Had a back-to-back Big Ten MVP season. So Braxton will always be an Ohio State legend. I wish him the best. And for those wondering about the insurance policy, here's the deal with that. I know most of you, maybe some of you already know this. He would have to medically prove that his shoulder was so bad that he could never play the sport of football again. He can't just say, well, it's not as strong as it used to be. I don't feel like I'm the same quarterback. Give me my $1 million. He has to be able to medically prove that the shoulder is so shot that he cannot play football again. So I really hope that's what happens. I hope that he's able to collect on the $1 million insurance policy, because I don't think he's going to make $1 million playing professional football. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see what happens. Before we go here in our quarterback roundtable, I want to get Dan and Duane's thoughts on the young Bucks. They're going to be manning the quarterback position. Stephen Collier, Joe Burrow, Torrance Gibson. Assuming all of them are going to be here, let's start with Joe Burrow. This is the one that I think has been, a lot of Buckeye fans have wondered about. He had an in-house last night. Urban Meyer, Tim Beck. Sounds like everything was smoothed over, because after that visit ended, Joe Burrow gets on Twitter and posts, "Freaking go Bucks." So I'm thinking the visit went pretty well, and Urban was able to smooth everything over. But just anything you guys want to say. Dan, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Duane. Dan, anything you want to say, what you think's going to happen? Stephen Collier, Joe Burrow, Torrance Gibson.
Dave, do you mind if I make one real quick finishing point on Braxton that I wanted to get out?
Yes, absolutely.
A couple of things. One, I think, and you guys mentioned this, we owe Braxton a debt of gratitude, because I don't know if people remember this. Braxton did not want to come to Ohio State and start as a freshman. His whole plan was to redshirt and learn, and because Terrell Pryor's a knucklehead, he got forced in there early, and I don't think he enjoyed that year. I think he got his butt kicked, and we owe him a debt of gratitude for taking the pounding that he did when he did. Secondly, the slot position, I'm interested in him because the backup was Noah Brown. You can't convince me that Braxton could not be a better slot back if fully healthy than Noah Brown. He's just got more wiggle and speed. So I think I want to make sure I get that on record, that how much I appreciate what Braxton has done, and just how tough of a kid he was to go through what he did when that was a really tough deal for him. As far as Joe Burrow goes, for those who don't know what the deal was there, Tim Beck was the offensive coordinator at Nebraska. Joe Burrow's family is a Nebraska family. I could be wrong here. I think his dad and his brothers all played there, and then they did not offer him. So you could see how that could seriously bother him. We had an item in the boarding house yesterday about certain guys that were on Ohio State that when Meyer got here and he hadn't offered them, they weren't as into it. I have to admit this, I am a Joe Burrow fan. If there were Joe Burrow posters, I might have one in my son's room. I got to watch them all through the playoffs. There are some guys to me when I watch have something, I don't know what to explain it. I call it the it factor. I think that's a cliche, but Joe Burrow has the it factor when you watch him play football. I imagine he's not the most impressive guy in a T-shirt and shorts at a Nike camp, but when you throw on the tape of a football game and the pressure is on, you will not see a cooler customer. I also love the idea. I'm big into coming from a football family, just like Eazy-E. I had a good chance to see Eazy-E's dad the night before the game. You see Eazy-E's dad, you will know his son is probably a good-sized kid. His mom was a track star. Joe Burrow's dad is a football coach at OU. He doesn't live in Athens for any other reason besides that. So he's got the football mind. I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. I think Stephen Collier is going to end up being the guy who gets squeezed out. No offense to Stephen Collier. He's probably a Division I football player. He was an Elite 11 kid. He's just not, the way things have gone now, probably the caliber of football player that can start at Ohio State. But all that being said, I think we learned this year that you need to have as many quarterbacks in the stable as possible. So while I prefer he wouldn't transfer, nothing would really surprise me going forward. Although, if you ask me, I believe the staff thinks right now that the heir apparent to JT Barrett is Joe Burrow.
I agree with that completely. I absolutely agree with that. I think Burrow is the heir apparent. Duane, talk about the young Bucks. I especially want you to comment on Torrance Gibson. Are you concerned that Torrance Gibson is not going to sign with the Buckeyes here in 2 weeks and change?
Yes, I definitely am. I'm not thinking about it as a quarterback. I too believe Joe Burrow is going. He's too far ahead of Torrance Gibson. Torrance Gibson has all these physical tools, but he is not the quarterback that Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow has more physical tools than anyone's given him credit for. He's a especially good runner. He's a bigger kid than anybody thinks. When he just toyed with just the sales, nobody toys with the sales. He toyed with the sales, and he did all he needed to do, and he could have done more. And I think he's the kid that's going to be the starter. I think Torrance Gibson, if he makes it here, will be a early entry wide receiver, and I think Stephen Collier is going to transfer here probably in the next year. I mean, especially with Cardale here and JT Barrett, what's coming in behind him with Burrow, Gibson, at least. I think Gibson stays a quarterback for a year. They see that he's not going to beat out Joe Burrow. And then you've got Danny Clark coming in behind them. I think Collier is just, he just does not rate with these guys. I think he was brought in because they wanted to have another quarterback on the roster. I just don't see this kid being he does not. I didn't see the physical tools. I did not see a guy who was the heady guy that Joe Burrow is. I just don't think that he's a good fit here. There's just too much talent around him, and he's going to get forced out. If he really wants to play the game, he's going to have to go elsewhere. Sometimes kids get in programs like this, and they just enjoy being part of the program. That's fine. That was understood when we signed the kid. He could just be happy here. If he never steps on the field, we gave you a scholarship, we're going to honor it. But if he wants to play, and most of them do, he'll leave. But that's what I think is going to happen. Burrow will be the one that's in the pecking order, whether it's as a backup. Who knows what's going to happen with other kids, with Clark even, with Gibson just not showing enough soon enough. And it's just going to be, hey, you want to play? You got to move out the wide receiver. You're not going to beat out these guys. And I think that has already been talked about with him, that he's not going to be a kid that is going to stay a quarterback until he either transfers or finds some way up the depth chart. I think he moves out the receiver. That's what I think is going to happen with those three guys.
Excellent insights from Dan Rubin and Duane Long on our quarterback roundtable. Hopefully we brought you some clarity out there, Buckeye Nation, even if we might not be all that clear ourselves what's going to happen. We illuminated the process a little bit for you, made this a little clearer. Thank you again to Dan Rubin and Duane Long. One quick basketball note, Ohio State will travel to Iowa tomorrow. The game is on ESPN, 2 o'clock, Ohio State at Iowa. Iowa beat Ohio State in the Big Ten opener on December 30th in Columbus. Thank you to all the listeners out there. Hope you have a great weekend. Take it away, best damn band in the land.